of March 22nd. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. And the first order of business is approval of the March 8th minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Next up is public comment. Is anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move up to Ms. Boyle. Hello.
How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you?
Good evening. My name is Grace Boyle, and I am so excited to tell you about the great things happening here at Monomoy. My speech is a bit short tonight due to the school that we missed, resulting in reschedules or cancellations, but Monomoy still had a very eventful month. Our mock trials team went to regionals on March 4th. After months and months of hard work, our team actually made it to the Sweet 16. This is the farthest that Monomoy has gone in school history, and it's an amazing example of Monomoy building a program. Cheska Barr, Shauna Speakman, and I, the seniors on the team, have all been involved since freshman year. And this is the first time that we've actually won all 3 league trials and gone on to regionals. We even won one of the first regional trials. However, as the season comes to an end, we can all be proud and feel safe handing the club down to an able group of sophomores, including Trevor, and that also helped to carry the team. Mr. Burkhead hosted his think tank as well. A large group of teachers, students, parents, community members, and the police of Harwich came together to talk about school safety after the tragedy in Parkland. Students talked about how they've always felt safe at the school. We also addressed the problems with school safety besides the physical mechanics, such as mental health. Multiple students were able to share about their plights with such issues and commended Monomoy on the welcoming and supportive environment that it offers to children dealing with mental illness. As Mr. Burkett has proved time and time again, he cares about what the students have to say. Another result of the horrible Parkland shooting was the Monomoy walkout. This walkout was planned by a small coalition of students made up of myself, Ted Clifford, Julia Ryu, and Sage Barnes, with the facilitation of Mr. Burkhead and Mr. Dixon. The school offered safety measures, such as the police being present to ensure that the demonstration was peaceful and safe. Over 200 students joined in the 17 minutes of silence, carrying signs or posters. Lily Ryan and Ted Clifford both spoke, and I read the names of each victim. I commend our student body on our willingness to get involved and take action in any way that we can. The juniors had their first college planning night this month as well. The guidance put on a great informative presentation. A panel of students, including myself, Cheska Barr, a parent, which was my mom, were also able to give our take on the process and answer questions. We all felt badly after making the process sound so awful, but then again, the process was kind of awful. The wonderful play All Shook Up opened last week. As usual and as expected, it was incredible. It was so awesome to see all the kids be able to showcase their hard work and learn about the talent that your peers possess. This was definitely some of the best high school play singing that I've heard in my entire high school career. Each of the students involved, cast and crew alike, are all incredibly talented. And word on the street is next year the musical will be Newsies, so they're very excited about that. All of the winter sports came to a close with the Winter Sports Awards night. We had a number of all-stars, including senior Eli Nickerson, Nick Meehan, and junior Isaiah Stafford for boys basketball, and then freshman Maggie Dever and senior Maddie Leonard for girls basketball. With both teams making it into the tournament, we are extremely happy with both programs. The cultural fair also occurred last week. This was an awesome opportunity for students to celebrate their heritage with music, food, and dancing, and language. It was great to be able to learn about the cultures of our peers, whether it be Dominican, Jamaican, or Irish. The Spirit Committee is doing a core values initiative in the form of Student of the Month. The first students will be honored tomorrow for demonstrating the core value passion. Winners were nominated by their peers for exhibiting this core value. And lastly, tomorrow is the Dollars for Scholars Hoopathon, so if you would like to attend or donate, please do. The money goes to the scholarship fund for future Monomoy students who plan to attend college. Any questions?
That wasn't short.
Yeah.
That was good.
Thank you.
I was expecting a couple lines. Any questions, Ms. Stout?
I just have a comment. It really does amaze me so many times when you get up there and you say all these different activities that we have. It's a lot. I happen to have been one of the almost sold out crowd who was at the play, and it was one of the best ones I've seen. It was really wonderful. And I just came from the AP art thing at the library where they made paintings or something for the children's room. So if anyone wants any grapes or cheese or anything, help yourself.
Yeah, that was the National Art Honor Society.
what it is,
It was, we were commissioned by the library to make paintings for the children's room, so they were all like circle themed is what they asked us to do. So, yeah, that was also something we did.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on our agenda is recognitions, and the one recognition we have on here is for school committee recognitions. And we have with us this evening Mr. Ed Jaworski, who was on the school committee with us starting when Monomoy started back in 2011. And we retired from our lovely group a couple years ago, has it been? Maybe a year and a half ago. So what we would like to do is we would like to recognize you with a lovely plaque that says Ed Jaworski, who was on the Harwich School Committee, which I was not a part of, but that was from 2009 to 2012, and then a part of the Monomoy Regional School Committee from, 2012 to 2016. And it says, in appreciation of outstanding service to the Harwich and Monomoy Regional School Districts, your dedicated efforts live on through the lives of the students of this school district. So we'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies.
Ms. Stout?
I would just like to say that, Ed, your gentleness and your concern for the kids here. We, as Harwich and now as Monomoy, have so much to be grateful for, because it was for all those years in Harwich and all those years in Monomoy, but I think that your heart came from all those years you were a teacher in the school.
He's not a bad dad either.
Okay, nice to know. Thanks, take care, Ed.
So,
Mr. Russell?
Ed, before you leave, I'll let your chauffeur take care of that coat. Just a brief comment, a privilege, Ed, serving with you for those years as we got real lucky and transitioned from Howard High to a region that developed not only increasing the kids' mix of each other, but also developed this building. Steady Eddie, loyal, solid, and through thick or thin. Thin being the cane, when you didn't feel well, you were here. So I appreciate that. You served us well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Carpenter, do you have further recognitions?
Just a couple really quick ones. First of all, I'd like to recognize that we have a $500 prize from the Beacon Teacher Technology that Rich Oldeck, technology teacher at the high school, got that will help focus some of our technology lesson plans. And then I would really like to thank the members of our public safety in the two towns. You might have noticed we've had some challenging days in the last couple of weeks. I'd like to, we could thank Mother Nature for having nor'easter number 4 be relatively benevolent, but on the last nor'easter, it was this sort of odd situation that I was in as a superintendent, sending out an email to all of our families after talking with the fire chiefs and brainstorming, because the conversation I had with both fire chiefs is we've got families and kids that have been sitting at home in the cold for 2 days, and we can open school because our buildings are warm. We just would have schools running on generator power, and so we were sort of talking about that. All the life safety things would be okay in the buildings, and I appreciate the fire chief in both towns giving me the thumbs up to open school. So I sent out an email to all of our families saying we're opening. I don't think many of the families realized that at the time, none of our buildings had power when the email went out. And there was an email that went out to our staff shortly after that first email went out, just explaining to the staff that they should be prepared to go old school, because I can't guarantee that they'll have internet or ability to project. And then, we had, we were lucky that Eversource was able to go and get power back on sometime over that night, so we did manage to go and open with power in all the buildings. But it's been a trying few days, and yesterday, we'll talk a little bit about this in a few minutes, but we had a safety presentation, and I would really like to extend a huge thank you to Sergeant Bill Massey of the Chatham Police Department, who went and gave, I think, a fantastic presentation to all that came yesterday.
Okay, thank you. And next on our agenda are reports and discussions, and we will revisit the 2018-2019 school calendar. Are there any changes since the last meeting?
There are not, no.
Okay, so what we would like to do is approve that calendar so that it can be published and sent out to families to plan. Would anybody, any questions or discussion or a motion?
I move to approve the 2018-2019 school calendar.
And a second?
I'd second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous.
While we're on calendars, I'll just briefly interject. I keep getting asked, when's our last day now? We have 4 snow days, of which only a couple were truly snow days, and a lot of storm and power days. But so with 4 snow days, and the superintendent intends to hold and not go beyond 4 snow days, our last day will be Friday, June 22nd. So at the moment, we're ending on a Friday, and we're going to keep it that way.
All right, thank you for that, because I have it noted in my calendar, and I count and I shift, and then I erase, and so, June 22nd. Friday's a good day to end on. All right, so next up on the agenda is school choice seat availability. Last week, we approved a continuing school choice, and now Mr. Carpenter is going to discuss the anticipated openings.
So there's a legal-sized piece of paper that thankfully I remember to bring my glasses to see. What it has is we have what the enrollment, the October 1 enrollment is for FY18, what we anticipate the FY19 enrollment to be, which is a little bit of a guessing game, because we have been doing a better and better job of keeping families with us. So each year, we're just trying to sort of hedge on, which, how many students we might see potentially leave at which grade levels. So, so in this, if at 5th grade we see only a net 3 students leave, and if we see a net 7 at 8th and a net 20 at 9th, and remember that 20 is pretty much the cohort that would, in any given year, head off to Cape Tech. So if we see those sort of movements, I have sort of what I anticipate those class sizes to be. In the FY19 box, there's 2 boxes for the kindergarten numbers that I've kind of highlighted. At the moment, and this, if we look at what we anticipate happening when it comes to Chatham Elementary School, we have for the last several years used school choice to try to balance out the class sizes, and we have an awkward number to deal with at Chatham Elementary School that it looks like at the moment we have, we anticipate about 20, I think there's about 26 students that have enrolled, plus we have a set of siblings that are choice siblings that would come in. So we look at Chatham Elementary as probably having 34 students split between 2 sections of kindergarten, which would have us at 17 in each section. And then it's trying to look at Harwich Elementary to say, should we have 5 sections of kindergarten or 6 sections of kindergarten? There traditionally is somewhere between 6 to 10 students who materialize over the course of the summer that didn't sign up, that didn't, or weren't there for part of the kindergarten registration in Harwich. So at the moment, if we push the families that have said we'd like to go to Chatham Elementary School, but there's not room for them, and say there's seats available in Harwich, and accept the families. There's, I think, 8 families already that have applied to Harwich. We're looking at about 15 and a half students per class at Harwich, and that might go up a little bit, but there's a chance that next year the enrollment might be a little bit less in the Harwich Elementary kindergarten classrooms than the Chatham Elementary kindergarten classrooms. Other than that, we just sort of roll up what the class sizes are this year and at each grade level at the elementary level. You'll also notice that we have in FY18 sort of a bumper crop of students at 5th grade at the middle school, and that group is coming up to 6th grade at the middle school. And I think we're going to have to sort of follow this and really see how many students do head off to the charter school, and how many students are interested in choicing in. We've actually had 7 families have applied wanting to choice in at 6th grade, but that grade level is just overfilled as it is, so we'll be saying no to those families. We also might need to think about, we have school choice dollars that we've banked that we might need to look at using for 1 year, those school choice dollars, and adding an FTE to help mitigate some of those class sizes at 6th grade as this bubble moves through the system. So we'll have to kind of look at that. But the way I see it now is those that have applied for kindergarten at Chatham Elementary School is, we will go and if we need to do a lottery on those, we'll accept the siblings first, and then so I would say kindergarten at Chatham Elementary, based on the applications we have right now, is full, and then grade 4 in both elementary schools were full currently. At grade 1 at Chatham Elementary, we'd be full. There would be space in the other grade levels. And then, as I said, grade 6 at the middle school were full, but would have space in 5, 7, and then at the high school in 8 and 9. And we've talked at the high school about really not accepting students through school choice after grade 9, because at the end of the day, they are going to be taking the MCAS exam in 10th grade, and we're responsible for what that score looks like, and want to make sure that the students are with us. So I also have at the bottom of the page, if we look at these cohorts over time, we're flirting with a building that was built for 700, and when we look at the class of 2022, we will be at around 684, and that's if we see sort of a consistent number of kids choicing in as have come in at the high school. If we actually see some more joining us in 8th and 9th grade, that number could go up and really hit 700 pretty quickly. So this is not something that we need to take action on, it's just reporting back to you. So we will go and start notifying kindergarten families what we can do there. We also have, are going to talk at our next administrators meeting if we need to just be prepared for potential rush on choice seats, depending on what happens fiscally in one of our neighboring school districts. How would that impact school choice requests for this district?
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Carpenter? So obviously if families want to apply, that's open and they can, is there a time when they're going to be notified by
Well,
so
I
that
think,
they can expect?
I think with the kindergarten ones, we
That
can,
has to-
we can notify Chatham. I think there's some families that we can just let know now. So the
Okay.
Chatham Elementary School kindergarten, we can let those families know because we have a good feel for what that number's gonna look like. And those that have applied in grades that are full, we'll have to respond back and just say that there's not space available in that cohort.
And will the information of the grade levels that are full, could that be posted on the website
Yeah.
so that families know, so they don't have to go through the process?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stout?
On the grade kindergarten and grade 1, we have, if we're talking, like we have been for months now, about trying to have an ideal of 3 classrooms per Chatham Elementary, why wouldn't we open up those grades to school choice tentatively if we got enough to have a whole classroom level?
Well, we have, just to get to that, to have that next classroom be filled, we'd have to see another 12 families from Harwich, at least another 12 families from Harwich come over to fill that classroom, and we just haven't had that sort of response. So, so it's doubtful that we'll
But-
get to that number.
It wouldn't have to be just from Harwich, because the problem that has been stated isn't particularly about Harwich. It's about Chatham, is some people, I don't happen to be one, would like to feel like it's much better if we have the number of kids for 3 classrooms instead of 2. So I know that tradition, in many other years since school choice began, we accepted that from Sandwich or from anywhere.
Yeah, I guess another thing that you have to balance and think about, that that set of kids coming in aren't bringing in enough tuition dollars. If we're opening a classroom just on school choice, that's essentially 100% school choice, once you take the salary of the teacher plus their benefits, it ends up being a net financial loss for the district. So we don't have in our budget to carry an additional teacher. We don't have in our budget to have 6 sections of kindergarten at Harwich Elementary School and 3 at Chatham. We have in our budget for 8 kindergarten teachers.
Right, I understand that, but if there were 10 kids that came in from out of district, for instance, that would mean $5,500 per student, right? So that would be 75,000, how much would that be?
$50,000.
Fifty-
That even covers
50.
the cost of the teacher.
I don't know what a beginning teacher costs one of the first few years, and I don't know also what the benefit package would cost, so I'd like to know that.
So a family benefit package costs the district $25,000 roughly, and an average teacher's salary is probably around $55,000.
So it would be a net loss of $30,000. And so would that be or not worth, if we were going to transport kids from Harwich, East Harwich or something, there's going to be some additional cost for the busing. And I know the busing last time you said was $80,000. So without stirring up any kind of controversy, if we brought kids in and supplemented it some, and if we gave first choice to Harwich students, then that would be a solution.
Well, at the moment, we aren't running an extra bus, so that $80,000 for the extra bus isn't happening.
No, but, I'm sorry, I'm not communicating well, I guess. So if we did the East Harwich thing, which we're talking about bringing up again maybe in 3 or 4 years, then that would be some extra cost because the busing would have to swoop over into East Harwich. So I'm not saying it would necessarily be a whole bus, but it would be some extra cost, and it might be a whole bus.
I guess, I think maybe a different way to look at it is when and if we hit that point, is that we currently have, I believe it's 10 buses servicing Harwich Elementary School, and it would be 9 buses servicing Harwich Elementary and an extra bus coming towards Chatham. So we wouldn't be adding a bus, we would just be having
Moving it over.
the routes done differently.
Okay. So I'm just saying that if this were done, I know that if it's not Harwich kids, then it's outside supplementing that there is some extra cost to it. It's not any significant extra cost per household, but for our budget that's set, it is an extra cost. But by not doing anything, we're creating the need to do something that we might not need to do otherwise.
I think for school districts, I think what we have to keep in mind is that and I'm a firm believer in this, I think school choice makes sense when there are free seats. So if we're talking at Harwich Elementary School, we're anticipating 15 and a half students, we could pick up 1 or 2 children per classroom, and, we're still in that nice 18, but when we start picking up so many students that we're adding staff to compensate for, creating entire new classes just based on school choice, that's where I think it's not a fiscally wise thing for the district over the long haul.
I understand what you're saying, I just didn't know what the cost of the problem was.
Any other questions about school choice? Okay, we will move on then to the update on the school safety meeting that was held last night. Mr. Carpenter.
So I would like to thank all of the parents that came. It was one of those, after having various different parent meetings and extending invitations for almost 5 years now, I'm usually sort of prepared for maybe 10 or 15 parents coming, and I think the last time we had this exact same presentation, I think we might have had 5 people in the audience, and we held it in the auditorium. We held it here in the library thinking that it might be more conducive for a conversation, and we were sort of at capacity for the room. So we had well over 100 parents came to be part of the discussion, and I think it's a testament to some of the tragedies that have happened recently. Just was it 2 days ago there was a shooting at a school in Maryland, and a little over a month ago there was the situation in Parkland, Florida, and I think there are a lot of parents that are concerned. Again, I thought Bill Massey with the police department did a great job of sharing very much the same presentation he gave to the school committee to the parents to talk about this concept of run, hide, fight. I had 2 different parents that were there last night email me. One was emailing with some suggestions or ideas that he went home and thought about some more, and another emailed Melissa and I wanting to get more involved. And so it was nice to see the turnout we had. We had a number of different things come up in the conversation. Everything from some parents that expressing a want for metal detectors to questions on what are our feelings about arming faculty, and and then I think there were just things that I think are maybe things that we really need to look at in the near future with the crisis team. I think things like making sure that our buildings have, that we're following protocols where somebody that's leaving while somebody's coming, that we're not letting somebody in, but we're following the, just because I'm being nice and holding the door open for you, but but we want to make sure that we're buzzing each person in and having each person have that verbal interaction before they even get into the building with one of the building secretaries to make sure that that person has a reason to be in the school. I think one of the other things that came up that I think something we need to wrestle with is I think our schools do a great job during the school hours. It's the challenge is what do you do before school and what do you do after school? And currently we don't carry anything in our budget to have some sort of security staffing that's happening on the that's happening on the hind end, particularly at the middle school or the high school. There's so many different clubs and activities and sports that are going on, and there's kids coming from other schools, and just the logistics of how do you manage building security afterwards was a conversation that some parents raised that I think we need to go and bring back. So I would like to just thank Sam Hine, did a nice job of jotting down all the different points that were raised, and we'll go take this back to the crisis team. We're going to have another meeting to process that, and then I'll be working with Jim to crank out a survey like Terry had discussed at our last school committee meeting of our staff, and get their feedback and bring those different ideas to the crisis team and think about what are the ones that are most practical for us to put in place now, and what are ones we might need to go and plan for in terms of budgets.
Questions, Ms. Stout?
I really appreciate you bringing up the thing about before and after school. I totally agree. When I didn't really want to come to that meeting last night because I expected there to be 3 people and I was exhausted. And when I ever got in the door and I saw, I've never, as you said, you in all your years here have never seen such a large crowd in this room before. It was surprising. And to hear the questions, there were numerous questions and real concerns that a lot of people have. And I've heard since that there are a lot of people that would love to hear that program that weren't able to get there. So there's lots of interest in it. Fortunately, it's on the, it was videotaped, and so people can watch that. There's a link on the website for that. So that's really helpful. But I'll reiterate what Scott said. Bill Massey was just masterful in his way of dealing with this, even to the point where people wanted to know how he'd talked to young elementary kids about this. And he mentioned that, they're not talking about bad guys, they're not talking about how or anything. They're talking about how, getting out the process, not about, what's going on so much. And he was excellent on that. So it was great. I think everybody that was here thought it was really a good meeting.
Mr. Russell?
I echo the comments. I was so impressed with the response. In a way, it kind of proves the point that bad news has wings. And I think it was the sergeant who commented about how when you get into, I thought of sports analogies where Ted Williams at one time hit a little bit over 406. And that meant that a little bit more than once every twice that he came to bat, he was sent back to the dugout with an out. And yet this topic and this issue, everybody has to bat 1,000. And it's not a perfect world, we know that, and yet I think we've come a long way from a learning center where kids come in feeling comfortable and teachers have a prime role of creating climate and then sharing knowledge with them, to now a multifaceted role, and it'll never be perfect. And there'll always be that opportunity for something to happen. And I thought not only the law enforcement and fire folks that chatted, but I was impressed with the parents sharing and their understanding of the task that classroom teachers have and principals have when you face this issue. So hopefully this crisis team can continue to meet and create ways in which we become safer than what we already are.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Carpenter?
So, as Sharon said, we have the meeting was filmed, and on the superintendent's webpage, or website, you can go to, and there's a link that you can stream the video from there.
Thank you. All right, so we move on. We're actually going to be skipping over number 4, as Mr. Carpenter alluded to, the staff survey results, which hasn't happened yet. And we'll move on to the FY 2019 budget, the Harwich debt exclusions. At our last meeting, we approved the budget and the assessments to the towns, and shortly thereafter, there was a budget summit, or some sort of budget meeting with the town of Harwich, the selectmen and the finance committees, and they made a choice on what they're going to do with part of our assessment to the town of Harwich that wasn't really very publicly shared, and so we feel that it's pretty important for us to publicly share it here. Harwich took our assessment and decided to pull out 2 pieces of their share, or pull out 2 pieces, one of which is the, and I apologize, I don't have the dollar amounts, I don't, you do. Pull out the pieces for the bathrooms for the field and the concession stand, and then also their portion of the stabilization fund that we're trying to begin for our district. And what that means is that they're going to have to vote on our budget, and then there will be a secondary item at town meeting, actually 2 additional items, right? It's not going to be combined as one.
Right, 2.
2 separate, so they will actually have 3 votes at town meeting, and then it would actually also include a ballot vote for those 2 additional items. So in order for our full budget to get passed, we actually need, I guess in essence, 6 positive votes from the town of Harwich. So I don't know if you would like to go through the
Yes.
dollar amounts, please.
So, yeah, so it was meeting the selectmen on the morning of March 10th, Saturday, had a budget forum that they were, going through the different town department budgets and looking at how they might need to tweak each to reach a number that the town felt palatable. So our share, or Harwich's share of the bathroom construction in the concession bathroom facility at the stadium field is $76,000, I think $76. So it's, again, relatively small in the global scheme of things. I'll bring at least my editorial comments is it's also rather myopic in that we pay a little bit around $5,000 every year to rent the porta potties that are out there. We're paying for bathrooms $5,000 a year to go and have porta potties at the stadium field, which are not handicapped accessible, which are not family friendly, and so the concept here was to have a true bathroom facility that would have a family bathroom situation that would be handicapped accessible. So I'm kind of saddened that we're going this route, but hopefully we will find allies that will advocate for us. I know the Booster Club will be making some comments, and I can imagine that some of our students will be voicing their opinion as to this at town meeting. Then we have the stabilization account, and Harwich's share of the $50,000 for the stabilization account is $36,625. And I would say that if we just look back at the last couple of weeks, it emphasizes why you want to have a stabilization account. We had roof damage in the storms that was pretty significant to the middle school and to Chatham Elementary School. Lucky for us, we don't own those two buildings. If that roof damage happened on this building, we own this building and its roof, and we would have to go and patch those, or, you know, a roof together with money that's not in the budget. I think Katie has the numbers for what the roofs at Chatham Elementary, I think Chatham Elementary's 40-some thousand. $49,000 worth of roof damage at Chatham Elementary School in the first storm, and the middle school was $144,000. And again, this will be going back towards Chatham to address as a town, but it does sort of emphasize why you want to have an account to go and deal with those unforeseen big ticket items.
Any questions about this or suggestions, Ms. Stout?
Question or suggestion, will we be having something printed? You know, when you go to vote, a lot of times there's a table and you pick up things so you can read it when other things are going on and know what to be prepared to vote for.
So I have emailed the town manager and am waiting to see, even in the warrant, there's little blurbs that they have for each article, just to see, what does he need from us for the wording for that. So I haven't heard back, but I just want to make sure that there's appropriate wording for those.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments or suggestions? I think it's very important that our families are aware of what's happening so that they don't just think that it's a single budgetary vote in the town of Harwich. And that I think anybody who would be willing to help advocate for the schools and the budget, it would be helpful to share that knowledge and that information to families and other residents of Harwich who may not realize how important the bathrooms are and the stabilization account really is for our district. It sounds like it's being frivolous and we're trying to throw in bathrooms into the concession stand, but as Mr. Carpenter said, we're required to have bathrooms regardless. So there's got to be something, and right now we have, I say, quite foul porta potties. I'm not a porta potty fan myself, but you have to have something, and that's what we have, and we're paying for them anyway. So
They're only foul when the wind blows them over.
Oh dear. Never going to another porta potty again. Thank you. I just think it's important that everybody is aware that this is happening, and we need parents and families and people that would help advocate, because I believe we all will be out advocating for our budget to try to help it along so that people understand. So, thought it needed to be shared publicly. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, we will move on to subcommittee reports. We have a superintendent evaluation subcommittee meeting that was held last night where we discussed follow-up to the workshop that Mrs. Presser did for us a couple of months ago, where we were trying to fine-tune the evaluation to kind of make it a little bit more palatable for us to go through. And we were discussing on how the suggestions that she made in terms of going through the rubric that is provided from the state of Mass for the superintendent's evaluation and aligning the different standards and indicators in the rubric to Mr. Carpenter's goals. So, Mr. Russell, would you like to continue since I'm talking too much now?
Sure. I thought it was a productive meeting yesterday prior to the safety meeting. Scott also joined us in specific to his yearly goals, and I think there are 5 goals. We asked Scott, would he be able to match those up in some matrix way to to the standards, and the intent also was to identify at least one element within that standard. And most of the standards have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, I'm not using the correct word, indicators. And Scott was able to do that, so we have a fresh view of this present year's goals to review, which we'll be moving towards. The other suggestion that was made, as we have this past year shifted to a September school year evaluation of the superintendent, the suggestion was made that if there would be any outgoing members of the school committee retiring or not choosing not to continue, we would urge that person to turn their evaluation in for that year. To do that, we would have a target of June would be when the evaluations would be collated by the chair and one summative made. We then would allow all newly elected school committee members would start fresh that June, at the end of the June meeting. So the cycle would be, for those of us who would be continuing on, our summatives would reflect the superintendent's goals, and hopefully we'd be able to end the cycle in June. Did I capture our thoughts?
Yeah, so initially, we were hoping to have the evaluation done prior to town elections, so that any members that were leaving and coming on, it would be a non-issue. And in light of the workshop that we had with Mrs. Presser and trying to, the workshop we had, she's from the MASC, Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and she came and gave a presentation to us about the superintendent evaluation and how to make it more fitting to our school committee. And because of that, we wanted to make sure that the changes that we're kind of making to our process, we have enough time to digest. So, because initially, the way the timeline was gonna be, we would have had to have voted on Mr. Carpenter's evaluation at the first meeting in May. And if you back that up, we'd have to have our presentations done, our public comment of the evaluation at the last meeting in April, which means the evaluations would have had to been turned into during April break, which would be less than a month away. So to try to make sure that we're not saying, okay, this is what we're gonna do, we're trying to allow a little bit of extra time in there so that we can kind of digest a little bit of the changes. And it's not really changing, it's just more focus. The goal is to focus on specific indicators, I think, instead of being more broad, looking at every indicator under all 4 standards, which is something that Mrs. Presser kind of spoke to. So, Ms. Stout.
So, I was there for Dorothy Presser's presentation, and she said that it should be like the teachers. On the goals, it would be the goals, but on other areas, it would be broad on the others. But I wasn't, I don't remember that much about deadlines. So are you saying that we would turn them in at the end of May when somebody leaves office
It would
at that
probably be
time?
around the end of May, yes.
And then would that be taken up by the end of school or something like that?
Yes, I think
Okay.
we should have the goal. We didn't really finalize a date as to when we would have it definitely completed by, but I think having it, if we can have it voted on by the end of our June meeting, I think would be a good goal, if that kind of works for everybody. If you kind of head nod yes would be okay. Or you could shake your head no too, but.
Yeah, it would be great not to have to take it into the summer.
Right, and that would, end it at the end of the school year, and then we could start up a new process starting in July.
Yeah.
So that's
Good.
kind of where we're at, and then either at the next meeting or the meeting after, we can kind of talk about what we did in terms of narrowing in on the indicators. So like I said, so it's not crammed in and we have some time to digest it a little bit. Okay? Any questions? No. Mr. Carpenter, Superintendent's report.
I'd like to point out that one of my goals was to have over 80 people show up to a meeting. Check.
More than exceeded.
Would that be considered proficient because it was more than the 80 versus just met the goal?
So I last week on the 16th, I put out a little blast to just share with our community the results of the Harwich Elementary School principal search. We had 13 people apply for the position, and they were all strong applicants. The hiring committee chose to interview 4 of the applicants. Of the 4, there were 2 that really stood out, and the hiring committee went to do a site visit with the one finalist that was in another school district, and then we had one internal candidate who was the assistant principal at Harwich Elementary School, Mary Oldeck, who had a series of little focus groups that people, the hiring committee, got to hear how Mary has touched the lives of many different individuals within the community. After that, the 2 finalists had a visiting time at Harwich Elementary School where they met with different groups of people. We collected feedback from each of those meetings, and it was pretty clear at the end of that there was one contentious choice amongst staff and parents alike, and that was to see Mary Oldeck, who is our assistant principal, transition into the principal role. So I had the wonderful pleasure to invite Mary to go to Ruggies and see if I could woo her to stick around in the role of the principal, and she graciously accepted. So. So I have, for Mary, I think the tradition is the feedback that the different groups have given us about Mary. We have put into a little wordle, and the words that come up are open, professional, supportive, knowledgeable, listening, morale. But Mary, this one is for you.
Thank you.
And we have one other thing that I traditionally make sure that we provide our principals.
Oh, wow. Got a jacket.
Very nice.
I just wanted to say I am beyond excited and absolutely honored to be able to continue the leadership of Harwich Elementary and to follow in Sam Hines' footsteps. And I'm so looking forward to collaborating with Mark Smith, our new curriculum director, and Robin Millen, and continuing to move forward our Monomoy elementary experience for our students and staff and families. I did want to say that I would just like to recognize the partnership and mentorship and inspiration that I've received from Carla Blanchard over the last 3 years, and from Sam Hine. And I will miss them desperately. They've assured me they're a phone call away. However, they may be in different time zones sometimes. But I just am so grateful to them for everything that has led me to this point today. I also just wanted to say that 2 of those 3 very handsome men back there are my husband Rich, who's a Monomoy high school teacher, and our youngest son John, who's here at home working at Shepley now. So we're a Monomoy family and very dedicated and happy to be here. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And then my last thing, I had the pleasure of going to speak to the Harwich Democratic Committee, and I was all prepared to do a PowerPoint presentation, but I guess that was not the forum so I was just winging it. But I have put in your packets the PowerPoint that I would have given had they asked for a PowerPoint. I am happy to go to birthday parties in either of our communities, other events, but it really speaks to some of the great things that are happening in our school district. So really looking at just where we were just 4 or 5 years ago, and where we are today from a curriculum standpoint, from a budget standpoint, and so if you need talking points for next time you're in the supermarket, here you go. This will help you.
Excellent. Might be something nice to put up on the website, except for we need to add the rest of it, the Chatham portion.
Well, I think it actually has
it?
both in it. It was just aimed at, or it was just titled for the group that I was going to see.
It was a great presentation. Thanks for coming. It's kind of a tough crowd, and you did great.
I was not expecting that.
Yes. You missed Tom Johnson. He wasn't there. He'll probably still be there.
Great. Thank you. And that reaches the last of our reports and discussions and such, and we have one last action item to take care of, which is the payment of a prior year invoice, which is in our packets. Would anybody care to pull out said prior year invoice and make a motion? If you want to go home, somebody's got
I
to make a
move
motion.
to approve
It's the only way to get them going.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm reading. Hold on. Course title details and endorsement attached.
Just the dollar amount is,
Perfect. I move to approve the tuition cost of $125, the request of approval and reimbursement for the Monomoy Regional School District.
I'd second that.
thank you. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is unanimous. And I'm just gonna stall since you stalled on making a motion for anything else. Because the only thing left is adjournment, but I'm sure somebody's gonna jump up on this one. Oh, really?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you very much. 7:27 PM. You're welcome.
Who's that guy leaving?
No, no. He's in retirement mode.
He's strictly